In the world of billionaires and business moguls, few names command as much attention and as many questions as Donald Trump. The former president, a real estate tycoon and media figure, has often been the subject of speculation. How did he truly amass his fortune? What role did his famous father, Fred Trump, really play in shaping his empire? But in a quiet, unassuming moment, an individual came forward with a truth that nobody expected to hear. In the evening that was supposed to be like any other, a man who had been close to the Trump family for decades stepped out of the shadows. With a calm demeanor and a steady voice, he prepared to reveal the hidden truth behind Donald Trump's wealth. The man, a longtime business partner of Fred Trump, someone who witnessed firsthand the deal-making, the family dynamics, and the shrewd decisions that would build an empire and leave an indelible mark on America's history. As he took a deep breath, he knew the gravity of what he was about to share. This wasn't just another interview or a passing remark. This was the moment that would change the perception of how the Trump fortune came to be. And the world, already captivated by the Trump name, was about to learn what really happened behind closed doors. The man, let's call him Robert Adams, had always kept a low profile. A respected businessman in his own right, Robert had crossed paths with Fred Trump back in the early 70s. They shared a bond that went beyond simple business transactions. It was a partnership built on trust, shared values, and an understanding of the power of real estate. Robert had worked alongside Fred on several high-profile projects, and their collaboration helped set the foundation for the Trump Organization's rise to prominence. In a small but cozy conference room, with just a handful of people present, Robert Adams sat across from a curious interviewer, his calm yet authoritative presence filling the space. He had spent years watching from the sidelines as the Trump empire grew, all the while knowing more than he had ever let on. Tonight, he was ready to speak. The questions began. So, Robert, everyone knows Fred Trump was a wealthy businessman. But how did Donald Trump come into the picture? Was it truly all his own doing? Robert leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly as he took a moment to gather his thoughts. This was the question that had plagued him for years, the question that, if answered honestly, would reveal a side of the Trump legacy few had seen. He nodded slowly before speaking. I've known Fred Trump for a long time. He was a visionary, yes, but he was also extremely careful with his money. He understood the value of real estate, but more importantly, he understood the value of relationships. What many people don't know is that Fred had an extensive network of friends and partners who helped him build his empire. And Donald wasn't always the businessman people think he was. The interviewer's eyes widened. You're saying Donald Trump didn't build his empire alone? Robert smiled wryly, the hint of something unspoken lingering in his expression. Not exactly. Donald certainly played a role, but the truth is, he was often the face of a much larger operation. Fred had the vision, but he also had people around him who knew the ins and outs of the real estate business. I was one of those people. The room went silent. The weight of his words hung in the air, and the interviewer leaned forward, eager for more. So, what exactly are you saying? Did Donald Trump benefit from his father's connections and wealth in a way that people don't realize? Robert nodded again, his voice low and measured. Fred Trump was always the one calling the shots. But what people don't understand is that Fred had a business partner, a very close friend, who played an even more significant role in shaping the Trump Organization. That man was me. The words landed with a thud, and the interviewer stared in disbelief. This was the revelation that no one had expected. Robert Adams, a man who had remained out of the limelight for decades, was now claiming to be one of the unsung architects of the Trump fortune. But Robert wasn't done yet. I was there when Fred made critical decisions, long before Donald ever became the face of the business. It was Fred and I who worked together on many of the early deals. Donald was a smart young man, but he wasn't the business genius people think he was at the time. He learned the ropes, certainly, but he also had a lot of help. The interviewer pressed on. So, what kind of help are we talking about? How did you contribute to his success? Robert's eyes darkened for a moment, as if remembering something from long ago. I provided Fred with the expertise he needed to take his real estate business to the next level. While Fred was brilliant at spotting opportunities, I had the financial acumen and connections to help execute his vision. I helped him secure funding, make critical investment decisions, and navigate the complex world of commercial real estate. We were a team, Fred and I. The interview took a dramatic turn. Robert's story wasn't just about Donald's involvement in the family business. It was a story of partnership, secrecy, and untold history. As Robert continued, he spoke with passion about the early days of the Trump Organization, describing how Fred Trump had meticulously built a real estate empire in New York City. He painted a picture of a man driven by ambition and a desire to leave a lasting legacy. But Robert also revealed something deeper: Fred's reliance on trusted friends and business partners, including himself, to help shape that empire. The tension in the room built as Robert described how he and Fred had strategically worked together to grow the Trump organization into a force to be reckoned with. But all of this, Robert insisted, had been overshadowed by the public persona of Donald Trump. The younger Trump, with his brash style and media-savvy image, became the face of the brand, but Robert believed that Donald's success had been built on the foundation that Fred and his partners had laid down. Donald Trump may have been the figurehead, but it was the work of Fred and people like me that really built the empire. I don't think people truly understand the role of Fred Trump's business associates and partners in the success of his son's career. As the interview continued, the revelations piled up. Robert explained how the Trump organization's success wasn't just about real estate. It was about positioning, relationships, and the ability to leverage those relationships to gain power and influence. He spoke of how Fred Trump's connections, combined with Robert's expertise, had positioned the family for greater success than they could have ever imagined. The truth was becoming clear: Donald Trump's fortune wasn't solely the result of his own efforts. It was the result of a carefully cultivated network of people, relationships, and strategic decisions, many of which had been influenced by the quiet, behind-the-scenes actions of Robert Adams and others. As the interview drew to a close, Robert left one final piece of the puzzle for the world to consider. Donald Trump did indeed play a role in his own success, but his fortune was made possible because of a network of people who helped build it. Without Fred Trump's vision and the support of people like me, Donald's empire wouldn't have reached the heights it did. The revelation sent shockwaves through the media, as the world grappled with this new understanding of the Trump fortune. For years, people had wondered about the true story behind Donald Trump's rise to power. And now, thanks to Robert Adams, the hidden truth had finally been revealed. The tension in the room reached its peak as Robert Adams leaned forward, eyes locked on the interviewer. His words had set the stage for an explosive revelation, but this moment was the turning point. The world had watched as Donald Trump's empire had grown, his name becoming synonymous with power and wealth. But Robert's truth was far more complicated. It was a history of alliances, secrets, and unseen hands that shaped the empire. And now, in the final moments of the interview, Robert knew that the audience would finally understand the full scope of what had happened. You said that Donald Trump was not the architect of his own success. You've painted a picture of Fred Trump as the mastermind behind it all. But what about Donald's role in the empire? How much credit should he get? The question came like a hammer, demanding an answer, a final judgment. Robert took a deep breath. His response was poised, yet imbued with a sense of finality. Donald certainly had ambition. No one can take that away from him. But the truth is, he walked into a system that was already in place. Fred Trump didn't just hand him the keys. He made sure Donald had the right people to guide him. But, at the end of the day, the fortune, the real power, that didn't start with Donald. It started with Fred. The interviewer sat back, processing the weight of Robert's words. But before the moment could settle, Robert leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. But here's the real kicker. What many people don't know is that Fred Trump, despite everything, was far from the ruthless businessman everyone believes him to be. He was a man of his time. He made his decisions based on a world that's now long gone. But the world Donald inherited, that was a different beast. The shift was sudden, the tension in the room palpable as Robert's next words hit like a bombshell. Donald had the right connections, the right opportunities. But he also had a fire inside him. And that fire made him dangerous. The interviewer's eyes widened. Dangerous? How? Robert leaned back, his face showing a rare flicker of emotion. Fred Trump was methodical, calculating. But Donald had a relentless drive, an unshakable belief in his own abilities. That fire, that desire to be more than what he was handed, that's what made him the figure he became. There was a long silence, the interview teetering on the edge of a profound realization. Robert had given the world the keys to understanding a massive part of the Trump family's rise to power. But now, as the story drew to a close, the last piece of the puzzle was almost within reach. Robert turned to the interviewer with a steely gaze, the calm in his eyes belying the storm that had just been unleashed. The truth is, what people don't understand is that Donald Trump didn't build his empire alone. But he had something that no one else in his position had. He had the drive to make it his own. And in the end, that drive, his sheer will, made him the man he is today. As Robert finished speaking, the room fell silent. The culmination of years of secrecy, business dealings, and partnerships had finally come to light. The truth about Donald Trump's rise wasn't just about wealth. It was about the complex web of relationships, ambition, and drive that had propelled him to the top. For the audience, the final moments of the interview were nothing short of a revelation. What had been a simple tale of a father's influence and a son's inheritance had turned into a story of drive, ambition, and a thirst for greatness that was far more powerful than anyone had anticipated. The world watched as Robert Adams, a man who had been behind the scenes for so long, gave a new lens through which to view the Trump legacy. It was clear now that Donald Trump wasn't simply a product of his father's wealth and connections. He was a product of an unrelenting, dangerous ambition that had fueled him from the very beginning. In the final moments of the interview, Robert's last words left an indelible mark on everyone listening. We all know the world Donald Trump built. But the question no one asks is, what would he have become without the people around him? That's the real story, and it's one that no one has been brave enough to tell until now. As the camera slowly zoomed out and the interview came to a close, Robert's words echoed in the minds of everyone who had just witnessed this stunning reveal. It wasn't just a tale of a billionaire's rise. It was the story of how ambition, power, and secrecy intersected in ways no one could have predicted. As the interview concluded, Robert Adams sat back, his face calm yet resolute, as if he had just delivered a message that was bigger than himself. The world had heard the truth, the story of ambition, alliances, and hidden hands shaping one of the most well-known fortunes in the world. But as the final words echoed through the room, something deeper began to settle in the minds of those who had been listening. We all know the world Donald Trump built. But the question no one asks is, what would he have become without the people around him? That's the real story, and it's one that no one has been brave enough to tell until now. Those words lingered in the air, a quiet challenge to the audience. Because the truth that Robert Adams had just revealed wasn't just about the Trump family or their empire, it was a reflection of the way ambition, power, and relationships play a role in the success of anyone. Robert had peeled back the layers, showing that behind every figurehead, there's a team of people, often unseen, who make things possible. And yet, it wasn't just about the people behind the scenes. It was about who those people became through their choices and their actions. Donald Trump's success, Robert implied, was driven not just by wealth or connections, but by an undeniable inner fire, a relentless pursuit of greatness. And while that fire was fueled by the environment he was born into, it was his own resolve that carried him forward. The key takeaway wasn't just about wealth or power, it was about the drive to create something bigger, to carve your own path, even when the world might tell you that everything has already been decided for you. In that moment, the audience realized that the story of Donald Trump wasn't just a story of one man's fortune. It was a story of every individual's potential to rise above their circumstances, to seek greatness, and to surround themselves with people who can help them achieve it. It was a call to action for anyone watching, a reminder that success is never just about luck, but about the determination to pursue what you believe is possible. As Robert Adams walked away from the interview, leaving behind a legacy of truth and transparency, the world watched, and something within them stirred. It wasn't just about understanding a billionaire's rise to power, it was about recognizing that each person holds the power to shape their own destiny. The question was no longer about how Trump made his fortune, but about how each person could make their own. The message was clear: your journey is yours to make. The choices you make, the people you surround yourself with, and the fire you carry within you, these are the things that will define your success. And with that truth in mind, Robert Adams left the world with something far more valuable than the story of one man's rise. He left behind a powerful reminder that greatness is built not just on the opportunities we are given, but on the courage to seize them.